Welcome to another episode of The Profile. My name is Gary Dunn and I'm your host. I've just had 2 pieces of pizza. I should have got 4, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. On the couch, or the chair, is Mr. John Lemin.
Hi,
John,
Gary.
how are you, mate?
Good, thank you.
Really nice to have you here tonight.
Thanks, mate. Nice to be here.
Did you get a piece of pizza, John?
I was offered one, but I thought I'd leave an extra one that you could have, but someone else must have had it instead.
Yeah, I just wonder who that was. Yeah. I'm trying to work that out, but anyway, my focus is on this interview with you. So my first question to you, John, is where were you born?
I was born in Manly, New South Wales. Came back over to live in Albany when I was 3 years old.
Okay. Do you support Manly?
No.
Rugby? Do you like the rugby?
No, don't have any contact with over there at all.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why, but just don't know anyone there.
This may be a strange question, but is it football, AFL, or for you? Or?
For me, AFL.
Yeah. Who do you support?
West Coast Eagles.
Mate, put it there. Okay, so...
Keep the faith, brother.
Yes. Although we're not doing too well at the moment, are we?
No, but blooding a few new young guys. Nick will be back next year, so...
At least we've got 3 flags.
Yeah.
The other team in town, well, I've got an empty trophy cabinet, haven't I? I'm going to get some thumbs down on this. So, John, okay, born in Manly,
Yeah.
and you came to Western Australia, lived in Albany.
That's right.
So, what was the catalyst for you to become a musician? Tell
Well,
us
my
your
mother
story.
used to sing in various dance bands in Fremantle before she went to Sydney. And she was forever singing around the house, and I guess I got tarred with the genes, the genetics or something there. And
Isn't that great?
yeah, and I grew up listening to Mum singing all the 5'2" Eyes Are Blue and all that sort of dance band music, and plenty of other stuff like classical and that. And my dad was the bandmaster of the local brass band, which, till I was about 13, was the only band I'd ever seen. I'd never seen a dance band or a live band or anything. But anyway, Mum taught me a bit on the ukulele. And when I was about 10, we were visiting some friends, and I was having a look around while the parents were having a beer, and I saw this dusty old guitar case behind the lounge. So I begged and pleaded with my mum if she'd ask these people, could I borrow this guitar? Which she did, and they lent it to me. But I just had little hands, and the guitar had an action on it like the bridge over the River Kwai. Fingers are raw. But I loved it. But finally these people asked to have it back. So I was back to the ukulele again. I hated that. So I saw a second-hand guitar up in the Sales Exchange. This old fella, Mr. Patterson, he used to run it. And he said I could pay it off. It was, I think it was £7. He said I could pay it off. And the only money I got was my 2 bob a week pocket money. Mm-hmm. So I went in there and I paid that off. I didn't pay it off. I only made about 4 payments, but he must have thought, well, I'd stuck to my word and I didn't have the money. He just said, oh, you finished paying for that now, Johnny. Yeah. I said, no, I haven't. I said, yes, you have. Yeah. He said, it's on the books here. You've paid for it. Yeah. I said, okay. And then one night my parents, it was New Year's Eve, and the pubs used to close at 10, and I woke up to hearing this music in my lounge, or in our lounge. I went up, stood at the door and looked in the lounge, and there was this 3-piece band, saxophones, drums, and piano. And one of my mother's friends spotted me, and she knew I used to sing, so she dragged me in my pyjamas, dressing gown. And
how old were you then? Sorry, John.
I was 12 then.
Yep.
And said, oh, Johnny's going to sing us a song, you know, and because all my mum's parents had heard me singing before, you know. Mm. And so I sang with this dance band a couple of songs, something like Goody Goody or 5'2" Eyes Are Blue. And that was it, and I got sent to bed. And then a couple of weeks later, they had a gig it was the wind-up ball after the racing round had ended in Albany. They used to have a big ball, and they wanted a 4-piece, and they generally used to call in this trumpet player, but he was a bit pissed off about only doing a gig whenever they had a gig for a 4-piece band. So unbeknownst to this band, he'd formed his own band and he wasn't available that night, so they asked me would I come and do it. So I was a bit of a novelty, a kid playing with the band and singing
Excellent.
Freight Train and White Sport Coat and Pink Carnation. And
That's where it started for you.
Yeah, so they sort of made me, I didn't do every gig with them, but I did a lot more than the trumpet player did. So I played in Kojonup and Katang and Beverley and Wagen and Narrikup and all these little outlying country towns.
At that young age?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Started smoking cigarettes by the time I was about 13 or 14. Drinking the big brownies, having a cig now and again.
It's rock and roll, isn't it?
And but the piano player, Denny Hall, he was basically a mentor for me. He took me under his wing and he taught me about, I remember he said to me one time, because he didn't used to play all the right chords, but he got away with it somehow, you know.
Bit like me.
And after I started learning a few more chords and started learning about minors and things like that, I'd say to him, "Oh, there's supposed to be a minor chord there." Oh, he said, "They don't care about that." He said, "It's 30% musical ability and 70% bullshit." He said, and he used to spruik to the crowd, and he was a window dresser by trade, and he used to carry these couple of big tea-chest boxes full of streamers and old straw hats, and we used to put these things on when we'd sing a song and, you know, ham it up and everything. And that's sort of where I got the idea. It really made me see that you don't have to be such a great musician, but you got to present whatever it is you're doing. You got to present it. So
you subscribe to the more entertaining part of it as well, because
at that stage, because I didn't know all that much on guitar.
Yeah.
And then the drummer from that band left, and he and his wife came to live in Perth. And they said, if you ever want to come up to Perth, you can come and stay with us. Well, I waited about another 6 months in Albany. I thought, I was dying to go to Perth and get out of Albany.
I can't understand that, getting out of Albany and wanting to go to Perth.
So I came up and I stayed with them. And I was working at a place, I got a job at a place called Charlie Carter's, which was like...
Yeah, Charlie Carter's, Madison's Foursquare.
Grocers.
Remember that ad on TV?
Yeah.
Where do you get it? Yeah. Charlie Carter's, Madison's Foursquare.
And I used to work in the warehouse stacking the pallets for all the orders for all the branches. And then at night time, by the time I paid my rent, because I didn't get paid much, and by the time I bought my lunch each day, which was usually a Schweppes orange and a pie, and my train fare from Cottesloe in and home, and then I'd catch a bus into the city at night time and take my guitar in, and I'd sing at these little coffee shops, folk music, you know, Peter, Paul and Mary and Kingston Trio, and Bob Dylan hadn't really hit the scene.
Was that like busking or in a way?
I
or
used to go in the coffee shop and play.
And people would throw you money? Or?
Oh, they'd give me sixpence or a shilling, sometimes 2 bob.
Yeah.
But...
so they threatened you bits then?
Yeah. And then... that was when they first brought in the espresso coffee machine, the big neon lights and silver and all the cream on the coffee.
Everyone's got one in their kitchen now.
Well, that's right, but back then that was the first one in town. And someone must have put me in, I suppose, about this young kid being out late at night, and the welfare department came and paid me a visit one day and said I wasn't, by law, supposed to be away from my family until I was 16. So I got sent back to Albany. I was dirty about that.
I would be too, I reckon.
So I got another little band there for a couple of years. And then when I was 17, I came back up to Perth. And I was in a talent quest at this place called The Windmill, run by this old entertainer named Coral Gunning.
Was that in South Perth? Or
No. This was at the time just down from, was it Government House up in Kings Park?
Oh, right, yeah.
Right down there. It was just an old house that had been converted. It was like a tea rooms and coffee shop, but they had a big room and they'd have talent quests there. And one night, and they also used to have like a special guest artist or a guest band.
Yeah.
And one night I went into the talent quest, and this group had just got back from Melbourne, and they were this folk group called the Waywards, which was actually Jimmy Lee.
Wow.
Lloyd Abasakira, Peter Bull, who was the guitar player, not a drummer at the time, and another guy, I think his name was Bob Horrocks, and he'd pulled, And the band was folding, and that was that last gig. And I won the talent quest that night. And next day, Jimmy Lee and Lloyd came round to where I was living. How they got my address, I don't know. And said I was going to be in a band with them. Well, I was dying to join a band, so I said, yeah. And that was the Troubadours.
Unbelievable.
But they're a folk group, hence the name
band.
Troubadours.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But I ended up leaving them after about 18 months because I was mad on the Beatles had just come in. And I said, we do all these harmonies. No one in town can touch us for vocal harmonies. Because the nearest competition was this band called the High Five. They had Glenn Ingram that sang like Tom Jones or all that big ballad stuff. Tony Tyler, who was just the best Elvis impersonator in those days. And another guy named Ian Smith that used to sing Buddy Holly songs. But the most harmony they ever did was Everly Brothers, just 2 parts. Whereas we had it all over.
4 and 5.
And I said, we can do this Beatles stuff. So the Troubadours allowed me to do, we did 2 or 3 Beatles songs and a couple of rock and roll songs. But basically they'd been a folk group, and their intent with getting me in the band was to do an electric folk thing like the Byrds, Mr. Tambourine Man, and carry on that track. Anyway, so I kept harping on, and Jimmy said, oh, we're a folk group and you'll never change us. Of course, I was a lot younger than those guys, and I was a bit uppity, got a bit egotistical, I suppose.
You probably weren't the only person in the band like that.
Yeah. So I said, oh, damn it, I'm going to leave. And Jimmy said, well, you want to leave. And he asked me to recommend someone. And I recommended Rick Selby because he was my buddy at the time. We used to practice together, and Rick used to come to heaps of Troubadours gigs, so he knew the whole repertoire, basically. He was the obvious guy. So I went back to Albany, and I'm playing down there, and one day I pick up the newspaper, and there's this half-page advert, Anzac House Ballroom, Perth's answer to the Beatles, the Troubadours. Spewing. I couldn't wait to get back to Perth. And anyway, so I had a good little band going in Albany, and one night the manager came out to me and he said, oh, this chap, Jimmy Lee, rang up earlier, and I said you were still playing, but to call back after 8 o'clock and you would have knocked off because it was Sunday session. Yeah. And Jimmy called back and he said, do you want to come up to Perth and join the band? And I thought he was asking me back into the Troubadours because I would have loved to have gone back into that. I'd come up to Perth and I'd watched them on a couple of occasions, and they were great. But he said, oh, no, it's not this band, but we've been keeping an eye on this other little band, and they won the Battle of the Bands in Perth. They were called the Zeebecs then. And he said, but they've changed their name, and their lead guitar player's just been called up for Nashos, and they're looking for the right guy. So if you come up here, you got yourself a band. So I came up, had an afternoon's practice with these guys, went back to Albany, told the guys in Albany I'm leaving, and came up, and that's when the Mark IV got going.
Wow, Mark IV, massive band in Perth.
And then after about, like, my intent was to try and knock the Troubadours off, you know.
Yes.
It was. That was my driving force then. And we practiced and polished up the harmonies, because I managed, like, the boys in the Mark IV did a bit of harmony, but they hadn't had the experience that I'd gleaned from my Troubadour days.
Yes.
And we started rocking about 6 months into it. We had so much work, we had no days left to rehearse, so the band just levelled out, and I felt we were going stale, so 3 of us decided we were going to quit our day jobs. I was working at Goodyear Tyres.
It was a big thing in those days.
Yeah. And 2 of the guys, one had just got engaged, and his lady, she didn't like him being in the band because all the girls that used to hang around, so she wanted him out of the band anyway. But when we said we were going to go full time, that was that. And then John Tower, who was the bass player, I think he had his own electrical business, or he was working for someone that was pretty stable, and his wife didn't want him packing that in. So we said, well, we're going to do it, and we looked around for a couple of other guys that were prepared to go full time.
Get 7 different girls a week.
So Jeff McCauley and Ken Jackson came into the band.
Right, yeah.
And that Mark IV went through and became very successful.
Yeah.
And then after that, later down the track, about 68 or 69, I was carrying most of the vocal load of the band, like the lead parts. And it was getting a bit much for me. And the Cherokees came to town, and they had Minnie the Moocher in the top 10, but they were making no money.
Yeah.
And I really liked this guy, Kevin Smith. He was a great front man, had the good pop sounding voice, you know, just that real good commercial sound. And we buddied up with them. They were in town for about 2 weeks, and just before they left, I'd already spoken to the band, and I said to them, look, my throat's clagging out. It's too much for me. I'm always sore and hoarse and need someone else to carry the load. What about we go an extra member in the band? And all the boys had seen Kevin performing with the Cherokees, and they all reckon he was great too. So, he wouldn't join us. He wouldn't join us. So it was getting towards the end of the Cherokees tour, and I went up to him. I said, look, mate, don't laugh. I said, but would you be interested in joining the Mark IV? And he said, you were joking. And I said, I thought you'd say that. He said, no, fair
couldn't believe it.
And I said, yeah. He said, yeah, I'll be in that.
Yeah.
So he came over and joined us, and then after that, the band just
went
stepped
nuts.
right up, you know.
Yeah.
But finally it got to a stage where all the boys in the band were married or engaged, and they didn't want to go to Melbourne or Sydney to work, and I was still single. I thought, I'm getting held back here. And then the clan, who had gone to Singapore, but they'd changed, this was about their third trip to Singapore, but on the last trip they'd already been up there about 10 months before they asked me to join.
Who was in that band?
That band was John Laurie, Tom Graney, Tony Malloy on bass,
Tony Malloy,
Susie Rounsville, who Tony's married to now.
Yeah, they had a music shop in Loo, Tony, didn't he?
Where?
In Loo shopping centre.
Yeah, it's
Tony
in Loo, yeah. Tony,
I can't remember what it was called. In Loo Music, probably. But
yeah. And
no,
then
Tony
they went
Baker.
out and became Metropolitan Music.
That's Kim Baker. And, yes, oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow, I love this show.
Yeah, so I went up to Singapore and joined them. And we're up there, we did Jakarta, Bangkok, 7 months. But after Bangkok, we just all let our hair get down, and we became real hippies in Bangkok. And when we got back to Singapore, because we used to be fully shirted, suits and everything, and we got back there with caftans and long hair, beads. But the band was better than ever, but we changed our course. We weren't doing any more, we weren't doing any of the, I still get the same old, none of that stuff, you know. We were
Could you sing a bit more of that for me, John? That's great.
No.
Come on.
I can't remember it. So we came back doing Grand Funk Railroad and Three Dog Night and James Gang and stuff like that.
It was really heavy for those days, wasn't it?
Well, it was. We were such a different band than the band that left Singapore, you know.
Yeah.
But by then, the band had just about hit their own. John and Tony and Sue had opened a shop in London called Arcade. And I don't know if the other members in the band knew about it, but I certainly didn't.
What sort of shop was it? Sorry.
They were getting clothes and shoes made in Singapore and sending them down here and marketing them here. And they had a business.
Tony was very entrepreneurial, wasn't he?
I didn't
always?
even know that they had this business going. And then we met these guys in the Air Force when we were in Bangkok, and they belonged to a thing called the Knights of Orlando, which is like a Rotary Club.
Yep.
You know, similar to that. And they own land right next door to where they were building the new Disney World in Orlando, Florida. And they wanted us to go over and open the club they were building there. And when it got down to crunch time, the other guys had to tell us they had this business going, and they were involved in that because they saw after the band, the business was going to be there. So we went back to Singapore and did another few months. And whilst I was there, this band came through from Sydney. Rex Bullen was in the band.
Okay.
And I told him our band was splitting up, and he said they've got 3 months in Japan and they're splitting up. So he said, I'll meet you back in Perth and we'll get a band going. So I said, okay, not thinking anything more.
Everything just seems to fall into place.
And we came back, and next minute Rex on my doors, and he had this drummer with him, this young guy, he's about 20, I think, Paul Johnson.
Oh, wow.
And then so we got Wendy and Rob Bailey from, what were they called, that band? The Aardvarks, Rudy and the Aardvarks. They were called way back.
Wow, I love this information. This is great.
And then we got Rob and Wendy, and of course Rex's wife, Lynn. Her name was Lynn Mather. She came over here as a solo act, joined the Troubadours, and I don't know what happened then. And then, oh, that's right, Rex was in the Troubadours for a while, and that's when he hooked up with Lynn. They got married. So we had Lynn, Bullen, Wendy Bailey is 2 female vocalists, myself, Rex, Paul Johnson and Rob Bailey.
Wow.
And
Rob Bailey, bass player.
yeah, and the highlight of that was we did the support. We had a really good reputation around town. We were pulling good crowds at the Sandgrove and White Sands, Edgar Winter, White Trash, Doobie Brothers, which Rex had brought this album back from Japan.
So what year was that? That would have been 70...
72, 73, yeah. And we did the support act with the Rolling Stones, and at the end of the day, Rex said he's joining Fatty Lumpkin, and even his wife didn't know. And Paul got a gig with the Peddlers who were in town, who were friends of the Stones. So we'd just lost the best keyboard player and drummer in town, and I got left with a bass player and 2 girl singers, and not a chance inside of finding a drummer like Paul or a keyboard player like Rex, so we just let it slide.
Wow.
So I put together a little country rock group with Brenton Fosdyke and Gary Bourne, who was the drummer with me up in Singapore.
Gary Bourne.
Another guy, Sam, an Irish guy, and another guy named Peter Finkelstein. And we were going to do stuff like The Band, because that Cahoot's name is from a band album. Yeah. But there's Sam, the bass player, and there's Pete, they were just really paranoid. One night we were playing at Pinocchio's, and there's Peter Finkelstein. We took a break and he packed up his mandolin and his guitar and he put his coat on and said, I'm going. I said, why? He said, they don't like me. I said, who? He said, the crowd. I said, you can't just walk. So he left us with a 3-piece band to finish the night.
3-piece?
Yeah.
And one of them's going.
Yeah. and that was the end of that band, basically. You know?
So did you do it as a duo for the rest of the night?
So, yeah, as a trio, yeah. Drums.
All right.
Yeah, drums, bass, and me on guitar.
Oh.
And then I sat around I was so disappointed with the whole, everything, natural gas collapsing and Cahoots collapsing.
You thought you'd break away.
And Breakaway asked me for ages and ages, and finally I just had no money coming in. The guy, Jimmy Burns, this chap I was sharing a house with, he was paying my rent for me and buying my food for me. He was a cool guy. He never ever pressured me, but I felt really bad. So finally, after about 3 months, so let's go out and check out this Breakaway band. We went out to Scarborough to see them, and it was a dive of a joint. And they were singing all these dirty ditties and chicks were
funny.
Their boobs. And I'd just been in a band playing Edgar Winter and Doobie Brothers, and I thought, I can't do it. And then my mate Jimmy said to me, we left the pub, we were on our way home. He said, mate, I'd rather pay your rent for the next year than see you join it. But finally, it got so tough that I did join the band. Ray Van Ross was in the band, and he's really the reason I joined that band, because he's nice talent.
Oh, very nice.
And he thought that if he got me in the band, I could show these guys some structure.
Yeah.
Because they weren't really good players. But it didn't take them long to crack on once I opened their ears.
Yeah.
You know.
Good for you.
Once I told the drummer, this is what you should be playing on your kick while Ray's playing that. Because they just got there and just flogged away, you know. Yeah. They didn't know the keyboard's got to play that so it fits in with this part and that part and that. So I was brought in on those terms, and they were fantastic. All the guys listened to everything, did everything I asked. And I said, you may not be the greatest players, but if we play everything the same all the time and no one tries to get fancy and ad-lib when it's out of their class, just stay in your own backyard, and no one can walk through that front door and say we're not a good band.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And then 3 months after I joined, Ivan Damon was in town. He said, get yourself a 45-minute floor show, get rid of all that filth and crap you're singing, concentrate on the top 40, and I'll put you on the tour. So he did.
There you go.
So we went from doing about 20 gigs a week in Perth. I think our take-home pay was about $300 a week. We were making more money than any other band in Perth at the time.
Actually.
But then when we went to Adelaide, we were on like $1,400 a week residency, no shift in any gear, 4 nights,
7 different girls a week
or something. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Money, girls. Yeah.
And then by the time we'd been to Canberra, we played in Canberra in the Breakaway, if you're listening, Paul Reynolds, and then to Sydney and then Brisbane. And then we were supposed to go and play in Cairns, and the floods hit, and we got stuck up to the axle in that big Breakaway bus on our
The yellow bus.
Yeah. I think it was Winton or somewhere. Oh, that's right.
Someone said you used to say to girls, "Do you want to come on our bus?" Is that true? Or
what? Come for a ride in the bus?
well, come on
Just
our
come
bus.
on the bus. Yeah.
It was true.
And they used to.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if they all came.
I just wanted to clear that up
Yeah.
because there was some conjecture about
No,
that.
that was a fun time. Do you want to ask me a question or two? Waffling
Well,
on
mate,
here.
I'm just loving this, and my producer's going.
So then we got we got into Winton, and there'd already been bad weather, and there was some huge, there's a lot of water on the road, and all these truckers were in there, and we had to be there by Ivan Damon. He'd call you up in Adelaide after your gig on Sunday night,
Father.
and say, "Listen, boys, need you up in Brisbane by Tuesday," and you just have to drive non-stop day and night. You get there, set your gear up, have a shower at the pub, and have a bite to eat, and you're on stage. After driving 2 days and 2 nights.
The amount of great musicians I've had in here and interviewed that have been on the Damon circuit, same story. It's like he would ring up and it was like he had something over you. He had photos of you with goats or something. I don't know, but you all just went. I'll drive. You did anything to get there at that time.
Well, sort of. He had the whole scene sewn up. Basically, if you didn't work for Ivan, you didn't work in all the major cities. They used to call it Irving Daydream's Magical Mystery Tours. Is what it was known as. Everyone, all the bands on the circuit, and you'd bitch about something that happened. Oh, Ivan rang us up at midnight the other night and said he wants us in Brisbane by Tuesday. Oh, that happened to us. We were up in Townsville and he wanted us in Canberra.
No, I don't mean to make light of that because you guys did the hard yards and made it easy for people like myself, and always grateful for that you created something for us. And
it was.
Yeah, so very appreciative of it.
No,
I don't mean
you.
to diss that
No,
in any way
our pleasure.
whatsoever.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, great stories, great stories. So, can I ask you some questions now?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, what was the band that influenced you the most? In the next 30 seconds.
Okay, Love and Spoonful was a huge influence on me. And then the Beatles, of course. But I guess the band that I liked the best was The Band.
The Band.
Yeah, because they covered a lot of different areas and different styles of music.
Yeah.
I just used to love Levon Helm singing.
The Waltz.
Yeah, the Last Waltz.
The Last Waltz, yeah. Amazing song.
And they kept going for years and years after everyone thought they'd gone, because when the band had split up, Levon Helm hooked up with the Kate Brothers band, and they became his band for his solo albums. And I was lucky enough, I saw them down in New Orleans. So I was over there. I looked in the paper, it said, Jimmy's Bar tonight, Levon Helm. And when I got to the door, it said Levon Helm with the Kate Brothers band.
Wow.
Fantastic. Yeah.
What year was that, John?
Oh, about 82, 83, something like that.
So what would the first album have been that you would have bought?
First album? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Or single, or...
Okay. Well, the first single I bought was on 78. My grandmother gave me £1 for my birthday.
That was a lot of money then.
And 78s were 10 bob each.
Yeah.
I bought Little Richard, Long Tall Sally,
Okay.
Flipside Tutti Frutti, and Jerry Lee Lewis, Whole Lot of Shaking going on.
Brilliant songs. Yeah.
They were my first, but my first album I bought, I don't even know if vinyl was out when I bought that Little Richard record.
Yeah.
Because they brought them out, and I think they called them Microgroove records.
Yes.
Chuck Berry Live.
Wow.
And Chuck Berry was a big influence, because then I started trying to learn some licks instead of, because I initially started learning the guitar to accompany myself.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I started getting interested in playing lead guitar.
Lead.
That's what I thought it said on the cover. It said Chuck Berry lead guitar.
Talking about guitars, we have this guitar here that I really like it if you could sign it, John.
Yeah, certainly.
Would you like to sign it in white on the back, or do you want to go black on the front?
Oh, sticky with me old
Stick with
mate
your what?
Ray up here.
Ray Van Ross.
Yeah.
So this guitar here, viewers, I believe now, everything keeps changing every week, but my good old friend, Mr. Slim Jim, Jamie McCanty, is going to be hopefully auctioning this on Telethon. So my producer's scrambling quickly for his keyboard to berate me for saying that, but you getting your signature on there, John?
Oh, it's just very slippery. It looks shit out.
We're hopefully going to raise...
Wipe it off?
No. Do you want to do it again?
Well, you can't even see whose name that is. But
I can see John Lemin there.
Cool,
do you want me to
mate.
put a big circle around it, or
fine, mate.
highlight it?
No. If they're interested enough, they'll find out.
Yeah. Something saying gigs, dipod, but you probably wouldn't understand. I'm getting really distracted here by my producer. So, okay, most of us have had to supplement our income.
Yep.
I know I certainly have. Have you had to do that as a musician? What other jobs?
The only time I had to was when I left the Troubadours and went back to Albany, and I got a great job loading superphosphate 8 hours a day.
Superphosphate.
So as soon as summer came and the pub offered me Thursdays, like at the time we were doing Saturday night and 2 sessions Sunday, and Albany being a tourist destination, the boss at the hotel said, when the tourists come, we'll give you Thursday and Friday and Saturday and 2 sessions on Sunday. And that was almost twice as much as I was getting for loading superphosphate 8 hours a day.
Crazy.
So I quit the job there at the superphosphate.
Of course.
Work. And then it wasn't long after that that Jimmy Lee rang from Perth and said, come up and join this little band up here.
How many girls would you have pulled in superphosphate? Would there have been many? Or?
Oh, I might have had a crack at the secretary in the office. Can't remember. She was a lot older than me, but...
So, who are you listening to on the way here in your car? Anyone in particular, or?
No, I wasn't listening to anybody in particular. I was just thinking about the night ahead. And
yeah. Is it what you expected?
Oh yeah, I've watched the other programs. But, I didn't know how interesting I'd be.
Yeah,
I was thinking, I better think up some stories.
You are very interesting, don't you worry? Fantastic to have you here, John. And so, what's the best Perth band you saw live, you reckon? Is there one? I know some of my guests take a while to work that one out, but it is a hard question.
Oh, it is, yeah.
I'll keep talking while you're thinking, if you like.
I don't know, it sounds really egotistical, I know, but I reckon the best band I ever heard was that first Natural Gas.
Okay.
Doing all that Eddie Winter and Doobies and all that, Deep Purple and all that sort of stuff. Good players in that band.
Who was in that band?
Rex Bullen.
Yeah.
Rob Bailey.
Yeah.
I told you this before.
Yeah, I know you have. I just
want to listening.
Yes, I was. I just want you to tell the audience again.
All right. Rex and his wife Lynn. Rob Bailey and his sister Wendy. Paul Johnson on drums.
And I said Rob Bailey played bass, and I know Paul. I was just sorry. I was just having a go. Okay.
But other than that, my favourite band to go and watch early days was the Troubadours.
Yeah.
You know, great vocal harmony, good entertaining act, and they lasted for so long.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that was still going with Peter. What's his name?
Anderson.
Yeah. And God, 98 or something, weren't they?
Well, they've been going for years and years and years before that. I think they broke up for a couple of years. And
Slats, because when I was at Gobbles, I remember Slats but coming up all the time. And they were still doing stuff.
Yeah, that was, I don't know which formation of the band that was.
Yeah.
But they usually had 3 of the original members, and then they'd get in different keyboard players and different bass players and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, but they were always a highly entertaining group.
So, favourite TV shows growing up? I must ask you that. It's one of my
I didn't have
questions.
TV in Albany till I went back from Perth, and I was 19 then. They just got black and white TV, but F Troop I used to really enjoy.
Yeah.
And what was that show? Hi, my name's Friday. Nobody eats meat on me.
Who was that?
Dragnet.
Oh, Dragnet. That's all right.
Yeah, is that what it's called? Dragnet?
Yeah, Dragnet. No, I haven't had a Dragnet yet, but
right,
that's good.
Yeah.
It's something different. And do you collect anything, John?
Not really, but over the years I've had like friends of mine have come from Asia and bought little knickknacks, and different friends from all over the place that drop in always seem to bring, I saw this and thought you'd like it. So I got all these all sorts of things around my home.
Knickknacks.
Yeah, knickknacks, yeah.
It's just anything.
Oh, one of my favourite things, small.
Because Brendan Fosdyke likes, he's got really smaller soldiers.
No, nothing like that.
No.
No, these are just those little caricatures.
All right.
Cowboys with the big head that springs around and all that
We normally have a chicken and a piano somewhere and some other things, but maybe it's disappeared.
One of my favourite things is...
Oh, there it is.
I got a neon light that's in the shape of a guitar.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Took me about 10 years to get it off the guy who owned it. But I finally got it.
So what would you put on your gravestone, John?
Well, I didn't really intend getting buried, so I'd be in an urn.
Oh, okay. What would you put on your urn?
Roll me up and smoke me when I die.
That's one of the funniest ones I think I've had. I probably will if you let me know where it is. So, okay, what does the future hold for you, John?
Well, something I haven't achieved yet, but I'd like to in the near future, is to get a mobile phone.
Are you serious? Okay.
Serious.
What would you do with a mobile phone? What?
I'd have cheaper calls than I have now. Because all my friends are on mobile, and when you ring on a landline to a mobile, it costs you an arm and a bloody leg.
Telstra must love you, mate. Oh, they must.
Yeah.
So, can you give me an insight into your phone bill? How much that is once a month, or?
Well, I've got it tied in with my internet. I only got on the computer 5 years ago. That's how slow I am. Techno fear, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I did. You know?
Well, it is pretty scary for some people. You know, just the change and the way you do things.
Yeah, but it's just, I'd hate to think that I'd be getting, I have got friends that aren't computer literate, and I just try and say, look, you don't know, you're going to get left so far behind if you don't crack on now, you know. Yeah, you got to get into it, but it's opened up an amazing world of music to me. Like, I read biographies or autobiographies or stories about different artists, and they flash back to the original artists of a lot of songs that I've played, but they'll give you the original black artist that sang it, you know.
It's amazing, isn't it?
I always thought Max Merritt's Western Union Man was one of his own songs, and then I find out it's by
someone else. Yeah.
Somebody else, and they had beautiful bluesy strings and big orchestra.
Yeah.
What was that guy? I can't think of it at the moment.
But you can even watch the profile on YouTube.
Well, you can.
And
they've even got black and white film clips from like back in the 30s.
Yeah.
I remember I wanted to get this blues song called I Hear You Knockin'. And when
but you can't come in?
Well, that's what I thought it was.
Oh.
And up comes this thing, Keep a Knockin', by some old black guy on the piano from 1928.
Wow.
The next version was 1934 by some band from Carolina or somewhere, Fiddles. It was like a country dance band, you know, similar to Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys, but a bit more primitive than that.
So would you spend a couple of hours a day on there now? And more educational for you to learn about all those
if there's
things?
nothing good on ABC or SBS, I'll be on the computer tracking down music and stuff like that.
I'd like to let the audience know at this time that if you like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, just click the like. And 12:05 every Friday.
Is that right?
Being released. I've got Mark Whitehouse there going, oh my God, he's finally saying it.
And these are all
he
the
wants
shows.
me to say it in the first 3 minutes, but I have trouble because I'm trying to ask you something about your life in the first 3 minutes, and he wants me to bang on about you know, people subscribing. I feel rude to ask you that then, and I just thought that was a segue there. I could use that.
Yeah, well, that's fine with me, yeah.
You know, could you get me another piece of pizza, please? Heat another pizza up. Well, no, so, look, is there something about yourself, John, that nobody knows, we don't know, something you could share with us that, just for this show, it'd be a real scoop?
Yeah, probably that I was a glass half empty type person in my own mind for most of my life, when everyone thought I was this outgoing, funny guy and, you know, always sparking, but many times I had to put on an act to spark up like that for my gig. Whether in myself I never ever thought I was making the grade, and sort of had that for years and years and years. It's only since since I went past 60 that I started waking up to myself and saying, geez, you know how much you've ruined your life from that way of thinking?
Wow, isn't that amazing? Well, it's really interesting that you share that.
Yeah, I don't usually tell everyone that, but that's a fact.
That's pretty courageous for you to say that too, I think, because I think somehow we all have that thing that we're not good enough, or I don't know.
I mean, you'd think with all those bands I mentioned that, you know, I'd be flying, but
yeah, you are
through all that. You know,
you've flown through this interview, and you've really entertained me.
That's good.
I've really enjoyed talking to you, and really nice to get to know a bit more about you.
Except one thing, you didn't ask me which album I'd take to a desert island.
Oh, okay. Cut. Okay, let's start again. John, and that's one question I always ask, you know, but my producer is sitting there on the phone, doing other things, and normally if I don't ask a question, he'll put that thing on the screen saying, you know, you haven't asked this question yet. But this time he hasn't done that. So I won't take total responsibility for that. So John, let me ask you another question, last question, right? If you knew that you were being stranded on a desert island and there's nobody there, everything's desolate, there's absolutely nothing.
Well, I've seen your other interviews and I've seen you ask this question. And it occurred to me, if I was on a desert island, chances are there wouldn't be any electricity there, so you wouldn't be able to play the album. So you'd either have to take a double album that had a lot of writing on that could keep you entertained, but the album I'd take would be my photo album.
Your photo album? Can we cut here, please? Because that, you know, that's just stumped me.
You told me it would.
There's electricity. There has to be electricity.
On a desert island?
Well, how are you going to listen to the album?
Well, you can't. That's what I was just saying to you. You said if you were on a desert island, which album would you
Okay,
take?
if you're on a desert island with electricity.
Oh, I see.
With electricity, so that's the only thing that was there. Well, what album would you take?
I think I would take double set album of the Pointer Sisters when they first came out. Not when they did all that disco stuff with the three girls, but with the four sisters. So they actually all Pointer Sisters, but they were two sets of cousins.
Okay.
And they used to dance and they did a lot of jazz covers and all sorts of music on that double. It's a lot of people aren't. It's live at the San Francisco Opera House.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful album.
I think that took 5 minutes. High five.
Sweet, mate. Thank you.
Look, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Mr. John Lemin, the one and only. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Fuck. Sorry, man. Sorry about that question.
You've got, groove with what you got. When you got somebody's loving, you really got a lot. Groove with what you got, groove with what you got. When you got somebody's loving, you really got a lot. Groove with what you got, groove with what you got. When you got somebody's loving, you really got a lot. You know it's a groovy feeling every time you feel like you're giving. This lonely heart is scared for you. Don't let your heart demand it. You got to groove with what you got. Groove with what you got. When you got somebody's loving, you really got a lot. Groove with what you got. Groove with what find an understanding. Don't let your heart demand it. Groove with what you got. Groove with what you got. When you got somebody's loving,